Chapter 1, Cold Shoulders.
Langston stood at the outskirts of the camp, watching the fire be built and his pack prepare. There was some feelings of guilt, but he quickly pushed it away, thinking once again, all for the good of the pack. He was still debating his choice until he saw his mate, Rayan, looking to the outskirts of camp. She saw him, but yet she kept looking. She was not looking for him, the anger in him beginning to build up yet again. For the pack, he grumbled to himself. He walked toward the camp. A large fire had been built for the camp meeting, and it now lit the evening sky with a red glow. The pack had been busy all day. Langston had even canceled the run this morning. The female wolves had been busy all day making food for the large meeting. The entire pack would meet once every month to discuss the issues of the pack, although normally not much would happen, and they would wind up drinking the night away. But tonight it was not to be so uneventful. Tonight many lives would be affected, and one would be thrown into personal torment. Soon the fire burned bright, and the circle around it was ready, as the wolves started to converge on the spot, the sun setting in the west. Langston looked at the sky. Bourdon had better return soon, he thought to himself. Tonight would be the culmination of a month of planning. He started the whispers among the pack, which had grown into rumors. They gathered around the fire, and Langston let out a howl to the sky. Bourdon's ears perked up to the sky as he'd heard the howl. Oh shit, he thought to himself, and took off through the woods, his body moving at full speed, but also using every trick to gain speed and height. A few seconds later, he saw the fire below him. He stood on a tree about 30 feet above the circle. He launched into the air and landed next to Langston. Langston looked over, startled, at Bourdon, who gave a large, fangy grin, but Langston did not return it. Bourdon noted the reaction and decided he would ask about it after the gathering. However, he would never get the chance to ask the question. The gathering started out normal enough. However, when Langston stood, the world began to crumble. It disturbs me, brothers, the rumors that are abound amongst my pack. I have heard many speak of a member of our pack questioning the laws and our ways. Langston snarled out. Most of the pack kept their eyes firmly planted on the ground. Bourdon's ears tucked back into his head as his heart beat heavily. It does me great personal harm to call on Bourdon to explain yourself to the pack, Langston growled out. What say you to these accusations, Bourdon? Langston asked, or more, stated. Bourdon stood, the years of repression starting to build anger in him. I have not broken any laws, Bourdon protested. While this may be true, Bourdon, the pack has told me of many occasions in which you question our laws. Langston barked back. Well? Bourdon paused. He knew what the next statement could mean. Something in him, though, made him push forward, no matter the consequence. I do question them. Some of them keep us safe. I would be the first to agree, Bourdon said. He looked around the circle and caught Rayan's eyes. She was washed in fear, but it gave Bourdon strength, and he spoke on. Why must we all be slave to laws that were made long before we ever came to the pack? Why is it that our women must be treated as slaves and have no free will? I believe in laws, but I also believe in freedom, Bourdon said, and caused quite a stir. There were mumblings from the wolves with large eyes on Bourdon. Langston stood up straight. Your ideas are dangerous to the pack, Langston said. He paused, waiting for someone else to say what they were all thinking. If he is a danger to the pack, he must be exiled, an old gray wolf said with a snarl. This brought a round of gasps. This led into a large argument. Bourdon was a respected member of the pack, and second only to Langston. Bourdon gazed down at the ground, only stealing a look into the tortured face of Rayan. He knew his questioning of the laws would bring trouble, but exile seemed like such a distant idea, until this moment. They argued for an hour, Bourdon saying very little. Bourdon, will you change your beliefs and live with the pack laws as you were intended? Langston asked at last. Everyone looked to Bourdon. Bourdon looked in their eyes and saw them all hoping he would bend to the will of the pack. But it was not the will of the pack, it was the will of Langston. Bourdon looked at his brother. His eyes were cold and dark. Bourdon was about to say he would follow the laws. However, deep anger continued to rise in him. He could no longer stand by. He stood up straight and tall. "No," Bourdon replied. "What?" Langston growled. "No, I will not. I will always fight the laws which I believe are wrong. I will and always have followed the laws. But I will not give up that we should look to evolve and improve our laws to enhance the safety and power of the pack," Bourdon stated. He knew what it would mean. "Bourdon, you were once my brother. But you bring danger to the pack with your ideas. In order to protect the pack, you must be exiled. You will leave in the morning." Langston began to lay out, but Bourdon snarled. "Were your brother," Bourdon snapped out. "I am still your brother. Nothing has changed. You have known my views on our laws for a long time. Why now, Langston, declare it dangerous?" Bourdon snapped out. "I don't need to tell you the whys of your situation. I am the leader." Langston snapped back. "Brother," Bourdon pleaded. "No. The pack has made its choice. You are to be exiled tomorrow." Langston started again, but again was cut off. "The pack?" Bourdon burst out. "You made the choice, not the pack," Bourdon snapped. "I am the pack. Tomorrow," Langston stated. "Forget tomorrow. If I am no longer a part of the pack, then I am no longer a part of it tonight, and I will leave now." Bourdon stood and headed to his spot to get the few belongings he had. He packed up quickly. The pack, back at the fire, whispered in shock. To see any wolf exiled was difficult, but to see one of, if not the strongest werewolf in the pack, be exiled was scaring all of them. They kept their voices low as not to incur the wrath of Langston. Yet even the most resolute questioned his path on this issue. Langston saw the confusion and fear that held over the pack. He stood firm. He would not back down now. After tonight they would no longer question him. For the good of the pack, he thought to himself yet again. Bourdon quietly and quickly packed up the few things he would take with him. He was full of fear, but part of him knew this day would come. He looked up, and there stood Rayan. She had slipped away from the meeting. "You could challenge him," Rayan's tortured voice came. He stopped and thought about it for a moment. Then he shook his head. "No. I will never fight Langston. I would rather be alone forever," Bourdon replied. "You should not be here. He will notice you are gone," Bourdon said. "I don't care. This is wrong," she replied. Bourdon nodded. He agreed it was wrong. He could feel there was more to this than showed on the surface. He stood up and grabbed his things. He looked deep into her eyes. "You are an amazing wolf, Rayan. Don't let them ever take that from you," Bourdon said. She wanted to go with him, deep in her heart, but fear stopped the idea before she ever even voiced it. She smiled up at him. "Don't forget about me, Bourdon." Bourdon, no longer caring about hurting anyone, gave Rayan a large hug. "I will never forget you, Rayan. You don't ever have to worry about that." He left her there, crying, and headed back to the fire. They parted and let him into the inner circle. Bourdon walked up to Langston. "What you're doing tonight is wrong and stinks of corruption. Your wills have been bent by tradition. We no longer need to run only on our instincts. We can use our logic and insight." Bourdon paused, his words falling on deaf ears. Or, again more accurately, ears afraid to listen. "Bourdon, for your crimes against the pack," Langston began, but Bourdon was done listening to his former brother talk. He held up a paw to stop him. "I have broken no laws. We all know the choice you have made. I will respect your choice, and I will leave." "Don't lie and say you're doing this for the pack, Langston," Bourdon snapped. "You're doing this for some other reason. I've always treated you like a brother. I would have never betrayed you in any way.
Your anger is much more dangerous to the pack than I could ever be, Bourdon spat out. One final word for all of you. Change is always around us. It is the wolves who are unwilling to change that will fall in the end, Bourdon said. He gave a few hugs to friends who looked anguished by the event, but did not dare speak against the pack. He walked out of the circle for the last time. He looked back to see the tears flowing from Rayanne's eyes. He scanned the pack and found Langston's eyes. There was more anger in them than he had ever seen before. He walked to the outskirts of the camp and looked back. The entire pack stared at him. The words, "Come back," sat on many of their lips, but none of them dared give breath to the words. He walked into the night, never to be seen by the pack again.